Hello, everyone. I am Eleonora from the channel The Awakening Path. And today we're going to have a very, very special guest. Give me a moment. I don't know.
Hello, everyone.
I'm sorry, I was just testing to see if the microphone is really working for you guys. I have two exciting news. The first one is my website is ready in all three languages, English, Portuguese, and Spanish. If you want to check it out, go there after this live. TheAwakeningPath.me. Today, I have with me on the waiting room Susan and Martin. If you missed the first podcast about the natural numbers, it will be in the description of this live. I invite you to go check it out later. But today we're going to talk about the influence of natural numbers in three major aspects of our life: health, abundance, relationships, and career and life's purpose. Are you interested to know about? So just stay with us, and if you have any question about this subject, or if you're curious about anything else, just leave your questions on the live chat, or just show your love to Susan and Martin. So please join me to welcome Susan and Martin. Just a little bit, they are logging in. And I'm a little too close to the camera. Susan Martin is the co-founder of The Body of Nine. The Body of Nine study the influence of natural numbers on our life. And they develop a way to find out, analyzing your body, which number you are. Susan, Martin, I can't hear you yet, but I know you guys are already here.
We're here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but I can't see.
And should be able to see us momentarily here. Martin, just turn on the camera. Can you see me now?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you.
Great.
Great.
Yes. Welcome to
here.
the Awakening Path. It's an honor to have you back.
It's good to be here.
Yes. Yes. Good to see you again.
Today, you're going to talk about four major aspects. Actually, it's hard to say four because looks like everything is important. But today, you're going to talk about four: relationships, abundance and finance, also career and purpose, and health. I think I'm gonna let you choose one. Which one you wanted to talk first?
Well, let's start with relationships because that's the true one of the very, very powerful areas when you understand your natural number and the natural number of people in your world. It changes everything in your relationships, and that is extraordinarily powerful.
Yes, as a relationship, it's so branchant that we could even spend the whole hour just talking about that, because it's relationship with yourself, relationship with your higher self, relationship with your romantic partner, with your family, with your community, and with everything around you.
Yes, and it's absolutely driven by your natural number and your nature. And as any one of your listeners that can do math, there's 81 different ways that we can relate to each other. And so the complexity of human interaction and layering natural number on top of that, we think explains a lot of the strife and problems that exist in the world because of our inability to understand why people are doing things and being able to explain and accept people as a gift instead of being someone that is being difficult.
Absolutely. If you start with yourself, the first part of learning when you find out your natural number. So your natural number is how your body is equipped to deal with life. And each of the natural numbers has a very clear set of functions and skills and gifts that come specifically with the body. So this is a fully embodied aspect. But what happens is as we grow and develop, our nurture starts to affect how we use our natural abilities. And because we don't understand what's nature and what's nurture, it becomes messy for everybody. So your relationship with yourself is very easy to stop trusting yourself, to start looking to other people to tell us who we are, make our decisions. We lose that internal body-based compass that is right there for us right now. So the first place that people start is with their relationship with themselves.
And starting as a child, when a child grows up and watches the world around them, as I'm sure everybody knows, that there are various stages in childhood development. One of the things that happens is as children start to get curious, they start to get influenced by people outside the family. And peer pressure is a real thing unless you know who you are. People trying to find out who they are without looking within, without understanding their natural number, as taught to them by their parents, can become things that they're not meant to be because they don't know who they really are. If I knew who I really was when I was 12, my path would have been very different because I was a nerd. And nerds are not always valued in society. People make fun of them. Children especially can be quite cruel. But if I'd known this was built into me, I would have really revered myself and enjoyed the fact that I was a nerd. And so the first place to start, as you said, is relationship. But parent-child relationship, we think, is probably the most important place to give children the advantage that most of us didn't have in the world.
Yes, I just returned from being with a brand new family with brand new twins and a 2 and a 4-year-old. And we were able to identify the natural numbers of the children, and they were making all sorts of parenting decisions. And for me, it was really interesting for me to see how much my own belief systems and my own nurturing started to just seep out into my way of interacting with these beautiful children. And so it was a beautiful opportunity for me to say, look at that, unconscious belief systems built into us. And we're now already building into these babies and these 2 and 4-year-old. And so I was like, maybe take a deep breath and say, wow, we could do this differently. And we started to do it differently. I was helping the parents to understand that if you're potty training your natural number 8 kid, you can't use a bribery system. You have to give them choices. You have to train them to listen to their body and let them make the decision themselves with your support. And they were using kind of this, they read a book and said, oh, this book says this is the way you potty train a kid. And they did it by the book and it utterly failed. And so that's an example where the belief systems in the world around us are not tailored to the specifics of each of us as a natural number.
And to give an example of what a huge impact that decision had on the child, Susan was there for 2 weeks, call it 20 days. When Susan came home, the child, who was 4 years old,
2
2 years old,
2 years old,
said that she missed Susan. Even though at the time she wasn't building a good relationship, she really appreciated and knew in her body what it was that Susan had done for her. So we have such a huge impact. And if we're not aware of the impact and we don't understand that our children are not like us, our partners are not like us, then it gets to be so difficult. And you start thinking, well, if I did that, this is what it would mean. But no, that's not what it means. It means what they think it means, what they feel in their bodies it means. And having this ability to put another pair of glasses on, a different lens to look at people's behaviors, it changes the way you experience the world. Whether, as you said, whether it's individually, whether it's children. And going back to starting with ourselves. even though we didn't come up out of the womb and we weren't supported by our parents, because we know our parents are not like us. Our parents did the best they could, we hope. Being able to say, my natural number is this. And because of this, I love myself. I appreciate myself. I understand myself. I understand why I do things. It's the place of learning and love. Because loving yourself is the first gift you can give yourself, I think.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And
I
this,
just
go
I
ahead,
just
sorry.
want to ask you guys, how on earth could you identify the natural number on the babies? Sorry, I know people are curious. I have to ask.
Well, the first, one is a girl and one is a boy. And the little girl is so delicate in her body and her way of being, but immediately she started lifting her chin and making eye contact immediately as soon as I met her. And so all of her movement was being led by this part of her body. She had a very distinct chin line already as an infant, and her eyes were already looking for connection from birth. Not, some kids are born like her brother, wasn't making eye contact with anybody. But over time with him, I was like, okay, he's not making eye contact. That puts him in the 5 through 9 category. And I was holding him a lot. And I started to notice that he was happiest heart to heart, just his chest laying on my chest. And then I started noticing doing push-ups on my chest. So he'd put his hands on my chest and he would push up and lift up his chest like this, push and lift. And then I looked at his face. I was like, oh my God, he has the jowls, which is on the face of natural number 6. I'm a 6. We have jowls in our cheeks. And he had the jowls, and I looked at his eyes. The eyes of 6 are very specific. They're very vibrant, but they're not focusing on or building connection when they're looking at you. And uh, so it was the physical characteristics, also how they were learning to move their bodies, that told me their natural number. Also the energy signature. Being with little Vivian was like being in a space of ethereal connection to source. It was just what one gives us in the purest form. It was so beautiful. And
That's
James was
beautiful.
just this heart, this and he and I started communicating just energetically with each other. We just, as soon as I realized it was 6, I'm like, oh, that's what's going on. I was like, oh, there was this energy connection between the two of us where we were just totally synced up. It was so beautiful.
So we identified, or Susan identified the children just as we identify human adults,
Right.
because it's about the movement, it's about the eye contact, it's about the shape, and about the energy. And that's true of a newborn to a 95-year-old.
And
Yes.
which number was the girl? Because that was exactly my daughter.
Oh, really? She was a 1,
Yeah.
natural number 1.
Well, I went to a training that's supposed to teach the new parents how their children will behave. And they said, do not expect a baby to hold their neck for the next 2 months. After 30 minutes, they bring my daughter to me. They put her in my chest, and then she lifted her head and look at my eyes and smile.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Yep.
they didn't, you can't do that because they didn't, they said it was not possible on the
Yeah.
training.
Right. Well, there's a complete lack of understanding that there are 9 physiologically different kinds of children, and this starts at babies.
Yeah.
My youngest daughter was a natural number 2, and she came out with her eyes open, making eye contact, and totally there with me. But my other 2 didn't bother to look at me for like 2 weeks. So, and they were a 7 and an 8. And so our children are communicating from the moment they're born what their true nature is. And when you can learn to pay attention to look for that, it is the most powerful parenting tool you can have.
Generic answers don't work.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And
It's something that
to,
works for one child will not work for 8 out of 9 children, because what they
exactly.
need and how they're supported is so different.
With my son, that was different. He was crying. He came as soon as he touched his cheek or my cheek, and then he calmed down.
Mhm.
He stopped crying. So he was more like feeling.
Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
I
Right.
think
He found out where you were in a very different way. It wasn't through eye contact.
yes. I just made a decision. Well, I'm being inspired to do. How about if we exchange the subject of today to parenting? Because I think the universe chose for us. And then the
Yes,
next one, we talk about the other things. What do
absolutely.
you
And
agree?
parenting is the most important gift that we can give to the future.
Right.
Before
It's
we
the work that
start,
matters.
I would like to give a little overview about a reminder actually. What are we? Who are we? We are not a body. We are a spirit having a physical experience in the body. You come to this planet, for example, you forget everything. And only a portion of your consciousness, of your spirit, comes to the body. The other remains with source, but not separated from you, never. That connection is always there. And with a child, that connection is more strong because they remember. They cannot express, but they can remember. With time, we will talk out into forget this connection. And this connection is through our thoughts, emotions, our internal guidance system. And the problem with society is they like to label everything and put a
Sorry about the
thing in
dog.
a box. And for them, they'll be happy if they put in just one box.
Sorry
If they
about the puppy.
put at least 9
Somebody came to the
bucks,
door.
would be a little bit healthier, but they likes to have one whole box to fit everybody in. That's impossible. Even if they made 9 bucks, it will get a little closer, but not all number 9 has the same experiences. They won't really fit in on everything they experience, won't be on that box of number 9, but it should at least have a better clue of what it is. So
We like to think about it, Eleonora, as what Body of Nine does is it shows you what your nature is, which opens the box that your experience has put you in. So your experience develops your belief systems that essentially block your access to the nature, which is our true wisdom, where we do connect to source and where we do have intuition and all these other skills that are natural to us. And so when you find out your nature and how your body is informing you, that opens that box for us to be the magical being that we were meant to be.
Yeah, and if as a new parent or anyone that is around very, very young children, just newborns, you can feel that source energy that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
And over time, as they get older, the memory stays with the baby as it grows to adult. But that connection seems to be less strong because you can literally, with a newborn, there's source just sitting there with you. And as they grow, you can connect to source and are aware of source, but it doesn't have that purity that a baby had. And I think, we completely agree with what you were saying, is that there is so much more to life than just this physical body, and we don't remember what else is out there. But we do know, if we believe ourselves and don't disbelieve, that it exists. We are not just here on this particular lump of granite to do whatever it is. And, some people believe that, but all the evidence that I've seen, and I'm pretty evidence-based, says that there's a lot more to life than just the little things that people worry about day to day, the smallness of the earth, because existence on this plane and others is so much bigger. And the body of nine is how it shows up on this life, in this plane.
yes, that's really, really amazing. So let's say that I'm a parent. I have 2 kids, 12 years old and 9 years old. I'd like to connect with them in a deeper way, and I want your help. what would be the first step that a parent in my case can do to work with you guys, or at least to get some help? It can be like through the books or the training or in person, group or private.
All
What
of those
kind?
are possible.
All of those are possible. But for a family, it's best if we either meet in person, obviously. That's the very best. Second best is a group family identification where the children come and participate with the parents. That is ideal. Because natural number doesn't repeat in family, but we influence each other. So seeing the family and the family dynamic is also very elucidating.
And even if that's not part of the path that people are on, you can start by, does my child feel like they need and want eye contact? Do they listen to me better when they give me eye contact? Do I like eye contact? Do I keep saying to my children, look at me when you're talking to me? Because that's a sign that you may need eye contact, even though your children might not. How do they move? Do they move all the time, or are they pretty staid and just sitting there doing their own thing? Are they doing their own thing, or do they need interaction with you? You know, there's a lots and lots and lots of pointers about how people behave. That is an indicator. It's not definitive, but it's an indicator about how people are and what their natural numbers are.
However, I want to put a caveat in there, which is behavior is not a predictor of natural number. It's the underlying reasons for the behavior that is a predictor, but you can't get to those underlying reasons unless the person can articulate and understand them themselves, and you're curious enough to ask.
But you can watch.
But that's not behavior. That's movement.
Okay, okay.
And it is the way people interact. There are aspects of behavior, but again, the motivation for that behavior is
Oh, I agree.
very, it's the hardest thing to know.
And this is part of the interesting thing about Body of Nine, is that my definition of behavior is exactly movement. Movement to me is behavior, but not to a natural number six. So you have to be really careful because the words are very, very slippery.
Very slippery.
And so, but it's very much watching people's movement. How do they move? How did they learn to stand up? Just watching your child learning to walk is going to tell you an enormous about who they are and how they move through the world, and potentially what their natural number is. Because each person that we know, or each child that's learned to walk, has done it completely related to what their natural number is.
The natural number tells us where the body balances itself and where it initiates movement from. So each of the nine has a center that is their center of balance. And this is a very important thing to understand with your children, especially if you send them into sports or physical activities, because you can then support them. Another example, I was with a natural number 5 child, and she was at the playground and she was having trouble balancing. And then I just said, use your head, create that connection up from the top of your head, because we had done the physical work together. And she immediately did it. She just knew how to do it. And her balance improved, and she had way more fun, and she felt really good about herself. She felt strong and balanced and really good about who she was. It was a beautiful thing. Because I knew to support her in that. Whereas her younger sister, she balanced from her low body, and she didn't like to get up on high things. She tried climbing, but if she didn't feel safe, she wouldn't get any higher than she felt safe. These are, ways we're constantly demonstrating our natural ability in our bodies and how we need to be supported in the world around us.
And for a parent, it is important not to make your child wrong for being who they are, because they're not going to be like you. And just because you can do something doesn't mean they're going to be able to do it easily.
Right. In fact, it's probably the opposite. What is easy for you as a parent that you think should be easy for your children because it's so effortless for you could be really hard for them, almost even impossible. And what you need is not what they need necessarily. And that, eye contact, physical contact, movements, and hugs, for example. A lot of natural number 5 kids don't really like to hug that much. They're not as comfortable with physical contact. And with 8s, if you give your little 8 child to a lot of people to be held by them, they will develop a mistrust of people, because people don't know how to be respectful in a way an 8 needs to be respected. So the understanding of this keeps us from causing inadvertent trauma to our kids.
And one thing I want to somewhat controversially point out is that exactly, yes, that's the book for it. Controversially, I would be careful about having people give your child tags. If somebody comes up and says your child has ADHD or your child has this or that and the other, I would resist accepting that, because a lot of the current definitions of these systems or disorders or neurodivergence or whatever you word you want to use is very, very much, as far as we can tell, connected to the child's natural number. And sticking a tag that stays with them for life, which may or may not be actually really true, it's who they are naturally, not a problem to solve, especially not with drugs or anything else, is going to be a great disservice. So it's really important to understand your children before you take them to a psychiatrist and who's going to say, this is what this child has, and is going to be this way for the rest of their lives. And that is not in service to the child at all.
Not at
Yeah,
all.
that is controversial. And
Yeah, I'll get off my soapbox now, but it really bothers me. Your children are given these
I have a very
tags.
important question. When the book about parenting will be ready?
well, the
Because I
challenge
think
with a
we
book
need
about
that.
parenting is there are
Urgent.
so many combinations. So in the book that you just showed, Eleonora, in The Body of Nine, Decode Your Physiology and Discover Your True Self, there is a short one-page tips on parenting a child of each of the natural numbers. And so you can start there, but so much of it has to do with what's your natural number, what's the child's natural number, what's the other parent's natural number, because these things come to play together. So for me as a 6, I'm a very fast-paced, high movement, very intense parent. And there are times when, as a 6 parent, I'll scare my children. And I had to learn what was going on, because when I get excited, people think I'm angry. But I'm not. I'm very rarely angry. You'll know when I'm angry. Also not very pleasant for anybody. But the point being that first knowing myself as a parent was very, very important. And then as I found out each child was like, oh, wow, they need something totally different.
And part of learning yourself before you become a parent is actually understanding how you were raised and what unconscious biases you have given to you by your parents and how you were raised. And as the numbers show, or we think is likely, your children likely have the same kind of natural number as your parents, or at least your partner's parents.
That's the irony. They actually want to be parented the way you were parented.
Right. So a simple default might be try parenting your children like you were parented and see what happens.
Well, and in some ways we do that, which isn't always the best.
Right.
It's very complex, and that's partly why this book is not written yet. It is still being researched.
Yes, I think it may end up being much more of a sort of AI kind of application where you can ask the questions that my natural numbers thinks my child is doing this. My child's natural number is, what does it mean? Because there are literally 81, well, not 81 because there's not the same, but there's some 75 different ways that children and you are going to interact.
But then you put in role, right? Parent, child, you put in sister, brother, older sister, younger brother, you start to get these other influences that are quite significant. We've seen, for example, when there's a 5-7 sibling relationship, that there is often the 5 accepts no and accepts rules. The 7 accepts nothing and challenges rules. And so you can get this dynamic with siblings that are 5 and 7, that there's a there's a sense of injustice in the relationship.
There's resentment.
And resentment that can build there just because they approach life so differently. And the parents deal with one kid at a time. And then the kids learn, well, wait a second, can I get away with this or can I not get away with this?
Yeah, and the other way around is the natural number 5. When my mother or my parents treated me differently than my sister, who's a lot younger, I didn't think that was fair to her, because yes, she was 2 years younger, and yes, I was male, she was female, but I'm very much concerned with fairness. And if she wasn't being treated fairly, then I got resentful again. So it's almost a minefield
It is.
changes
It's a miracle we aren't completely, well, maybe we all are completely screwed up.
Let me just tell you something that I just realized. I think it's okay to get the first one out because you can easily write 3 books on the subject. And doesn't need to the first one to encompass everything.
Right.
And I want to emphasize why this is so important. Imagine that a child that have problem to balance on the playground, and the parent had no clue about what really was going on, but they just wanted their child to overcome their fears and be strong and be just like the others that was having a good time.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
may take a decision of kind of force the kid in a way that wouldn't be helpful, and worse, would cause trauma.
Yes,
And
Yes.
absolutely.
that trauma would be chasing him for the rest of his life.
Yes.
Yep.
Also, allowing your kids to learn to walk on their own is so critical because of that. Their bodies are learning to use their movement center to balance. And if you like take their fingers to help them, you're knocking off their learning. And so you're actually inhibiting their learning to walk. So if you're like a helicopter parent and you're chasing your child because you're afraid they're going to fall down, they're not going to learn, right? And they're not going to learn to use their bodies. If you look at little natural number 9 babies like you, they actually lean really far back when they're learning to walk because they're learning to use the center of their back to balance. But they look so weird. I watched this little video of a 9. I'm like, oh my God, that baby was practically bent like this backwards. And so it looks really strange to us, but that's how that baby was learning to balance using their back.
That's interesting.
So
That my mom told that I walk with 9 months,
Mhm.
and I was tiny. I think it was very interesting. And my daughter, she didn't learn how to walk. She learned how to run.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
she'll just get up, run a little bit, fall, get up, run, fall, get up, run. I think one time she ran like for 10 steps without fall. Is, oh, now I know how to run.
Yep.
Well, exactly. And letting our children do that and noticing what are they doing when they're doing that. If you had known this when you had your children being, you might have noticed that. And when she did that, she lifted her chin and leaned forward from this part of her body,
Oh,
which
yes, and
maybe that
tiptoes.
accelerated her movement. I don't know. I haven't seen a natural number 1 learn to walk. But my natural number 8, she scooched with her butt across the floor well before she could walk. And so each of us are absolutely using our movement center when we're learning. My 7, when she learned to stand up, she would lay on her belly, she'd put her forehead on the floor, she'd scooch her feet in and then lift her butt up, and then she would just stand up using her forehead. It was, and my friend had a 7 baby, and she said, that's what my daughter is doing. It's like they're using their forehead to learn to stand up. So this is all over around us at all the time, and we don't know how to recognize it, but it's right there. Maybe that's the book we have to write.
How to recognize
How to
yourself.
recognize your child's movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that would be a fun one to research.
let's talk about the teenagers. The
Yeah,
teenager years
teenagers.
come, that amazing, beautiful child that hugs you all the time, want your kisses also. One day they just don't want to talk to you today.
And that is such a common teenager growth. I think a gift you can give to your children before they become teenagers is to understand themselves. If they know their natural number before that transition starts, then it's not going to stop the transition, but the length of it will, I think, be shorter, and there'll be less influence from outside.
There's a window from about 10 to 12 where children become aware of who they are within the world. And I think of it as our first spiritual awakening, somewhere around really 9 years old. And there's about a 2 or 3 year window when you have the opportunity to support the spiritual growth and awakening of your child. Unfortunately, we don't do that today. We really, really don't. And if you don't know your child's natural number, you can't really reinforce the fundamentals of their self-esteem. And this is the time to do it before they become teenagers. As Martin was saying, if they go into their teenage years with a little bit more of a sense of who they are, then the peer pressure and the natural trauma of being a teenager and the open communication. So yeah, of course they're going to reject you as a parent because that's part of growing up.
And
you have to separate.
Yeah, and that's the wrong time to start talking about their natural number because they're going to reject it.
They are.
Which is going to make things
Right.
even worse.
It will make things even worse. The best and most powerful time is between 9 and 12, and to really powerfully reinforce who they are.
We have about 7 months.
What's coming.
I have 7 months to teach my daughter about that.
Yeah, so 7 months.
Just give her the book and see if she got interested.
Yeah, well, the kids they are interested at that age. It's amazing.
Yeah, our experience has been that around that age when that curiosity starts to come in, they are sponges about themselves. And I don't think we've had any occasion where children of that age have learned their natural number without being really interested and actually spending more time with their parents talking about it than even perhaps the parents would.
Yes, yes. And examples, I identified a natural number 7 10 years ago. So now she is 17. And she read the book at 9 years old and asked questions. I have a little I have a natural number 6 that lives in Paris that sends me questions, and she identifies people and sends me celebrities and says, I think this celebrity has this natural number. What do you think, Susan? So she is already out there paying attention to the world around her because she's aware of the possibilities. So if we start to put this into the common language and the common knowledge of our children, they will be able to create something we'll never be able to create, which is an awareness of who we are and where our nature is and how to use our nature to be that magical person. Yeah, I actually love this part.
Do you guys have a class set up for parenting?
No, we haven't done a class for parenting.
I don't think that humanity in general is ready to hear about parenting tips from Susan and I.
Oh, you'll be surprised. They are. People are asking for must have another way.
I think actually you might be right. Yeah. Having seen Susan's friends. Yeah, having seen Susan's friends reading books on how to parent, maybe there is a demand for.
Well, there's definitely a demand.
Yes.
I mean, I can see that. And yes, there's so much work to be done, Eleonora, with this. There's so much work to be done. And we are constantly trying to decide, well, what's most important, what's most relevant, what's for us to be doing now. We both look at ourselves and say, oh, okay, we're lucky we got 20 solid years here, right? To land this into the world. And we get pulled right and left. And
I think the answer is, if somebody said, would you please come and do a parenting class to our community, we'd come and say yes.
Absolutely. And we are a little opportunistic that way. If somebody says, wow, if somebody recognizes and listens to what we say and said, this is important, we will work with you. I mean, we met you in Los Angeles. We didn't know you from Adam, and here we are. We're working on this with you, and your questions are so thought-provoking to us. Just that we ended up on this topic right now. It's like, our current direction is to potentially focus on business teams and helping business teams to be more effective. My personal, if I look at my heart's not there. My heart is here.
Yes.
After 2.5 weeks with this beautiful young family, I'm like, oh my God, there is so much needed work here. But to get people to believe you, because this is new information,
that's the hard one.
It is really hard. And also because you're working with their children. So you have to build trust over time with parents, or come from a trusted source, or be brought in by somebody that everybody else says, oh, well, I love Eleonora and I can see the impact in her family. And so, yes, let's try that. So how do we get people to say, oh, this could be true? And
this will make an impact.
This is important because nurture and nature are so intertwined in all of us. It's very hard to see it in the beginning for people to see what's going on in other people and why, until you really understand, okay, what's the fundamental aspect of 9 right now? You are paying attention like crazy, and yet you're look so neutral, right? And we know that about you. We talked about that in the last podcast. It's like how we present ourselves, and it's all here, it's all right here, but it's messy and muddled.
Yes.
In the world.
An idea just came to me. What if we try, I can try that. I try to get it together, mothers of autistic kids. Let's not put the label, but you guys know what I mean. The kids with special abilities, that's how I like to call them. That's because that's what they are. They really are. They have different abilities, and they came with a button that say do not comply to the old system.
Yep.
And that's very important.
If you would put together a group in LA or near where you live, we will come and we will work with that group.
Yeah, we're definitely coming back to LA in February next year.
I can see that happening more online.
Okay,
that's fine.
That's fine too.
Yeah,
whichever works. We will take any opportunity.
Absolutely.
So for you that is listening to us right now, you are a parent of kids with special abilities, and you wanted to be on this workshop. We didn't decide yet how long it will be, if it's 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours. We're gonna play by ear. But if you are interested, you can just comment on this video, or you can go to my website and send a message on the comments, or you can even go straight to Susan. We're gonna try to arrange that, and that would be maybe the first class online for parenting.
Absolutely.
And then
It would be.
we get it in person. I see that many people are still very busy still.
That's true.
Yeah.
But if we can get together online and can be from different parts of the world,
Yep.
and then I think we can easily get 10, 20 people.
That'd be great.
After we get the first one and we share the results, that will be very impressive. And I want to explain why it's impressive. I heard this from Abraham Hicks. You create your own reality with your thoughts, emotions, and vibrations. And that's how it works. Each thought that you hold for at least 17 seconds are not minutes, are seconds. You hold that thought, and then you associate an emotion to it. That emotion has a vibration that sends to the universe, join other similarities, and then when, I like to say, when the bucket's full, come back and manifest in your life. And also, everything, each emotion that you feel send the vibration to a collective bucket. So it's also manifest in the collective. But that is the trick. Which emotion you're going to associate for each thought depend on your perception. And your perception comes from things that you believe, that you're not even aware of, because most of your beliefs are hidden in your subconscious. Very quiet, just eating your decisions. You don't know why you react by the way you react. You don't know why you take some decisions that makes no sense. You figure it out later, because those rooted beliefs there. But when you shed a light into it, and what is this light? Information. You need new information to change your perception. And when you
That
have
is
that
what my first book's about,
information,
Eleonora.
yes, when you have
How
that
do we
information, and then yes, you change your perception, that's you get your power back.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's what I talk about in this book, which is how do we activate our ability to observe our behavior and then use curiosity, wonder, and awe to dig into the underlying belief systems. And then how do we use our ability to get back to our nature, the true wisdom within us, so that we can make decisions and create our life in a conscious way.
Yeah. Wise action.
And that is why Body of Nine is important. Absolutely. Very much so.
Well, I don't know if you guys were aware when you started, because it's like a completely new word that's actually connected to everything that there is.
Mhm.
So it's a large work.
Yes.
It's a very extensive work.
Yes, it is. It is.
And are you guys training people to do what you do? Because it's impossible for you to be everywhere at the same time
Yeah,
on the body.
we have done several training programs, and we have a fully ready program. And as people, we move to the point in our ability where we are only wanting to work with people that say, "Wow, Susan, this is so important. I'm willing to actually dedicate my time and energy to this in a full capacity," because it is that's the time that we have left. So we're really only working with people that say, "This is important, Susan. I see what you're doing, and I want to do this with you." And that's who we're looking for, Eleonora, is people that are like, "Whoa, this is critical work." And so if any of your listeners are out there and get an inkling about that, please contact us at bodyof9.com. And because this requires a commitment for people to work on themselves first before they can work with other people. It brings up all of your hot buttons and trauma and all your nurture challenges. And oftentimes, if people are doing this work, they hit against those as walls. So they need to feel that deep commitment and to be willing to stay with us when it gets hard.
It takes courage to learn new things.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we teach is there are 9 centers in our body, and you have one. We've gone over that, but you can learn the other 8.
Right.
And the first step to being able to do this work is knowing all 8 and having all 8 in your body. And once you have all 8 in the body, you can start to see it in other people. And then the gift that you can give other people is not just being able for other people to experience who they are, but to teach other people to have all 9 in their body as well. And we've done that 3 times now. And we've trained 30 some people with the ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know how to do the training, and we've made it much easier. We can do it much more quickly.
Yes.
But the people, it's like there's an old joke. How many light bulbs does it take? How many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is only one, but they've got to want to change. And so if you want to change,
yeah,
and you're on that path, and you are interested and curious and maybe even passionate about what it is we do, we would love to hear from you, because we can teach you.
We can.
To do this.
Yep. And the more people that know and understand this, the more this can get out into the world. And that's our fundamental desire, is that this is part of our natural conversation as much as the color of your hair and your eyes. That this is, it's as fundamental to who we are and how we show up in the world. Probably even more fundamental.
Yes.
Yes. What I envision for you guys is you guys on the top of, let's say, a structure. You teach, let's say, 10 people. Those 10 people teach more 10,
yep.
And it spread to the world. It's like teach people to be teachers.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what we know how to do that.
We do. And we have, I would say, 4 or 5 people that really are quite expert at it. And some other people who've gone other directions with the work. Sometimes people take what we teach them and they use it apply it in their world. So it takes a different flavor. It's still there, and it's still underlying in their work, but it isn't the center of their work. But we have about 5 or 6 people where it really truly is the center of their work. And that's the people we're looking for, people that want to teach this, want to get out there and teach this to others, because that's important to us. Yeah.
So for you that is watching right now, if you feel called to make this part of your life's purpose, you just found.
Yep.
Just go to the body of 9 contact page, you know who to find. And one thing that you said that is very important, we are not here to tell you that you need to go with one of the 9 labels. Because the natural number I see as the horoscope signs, even though you have more the abilities and qualities of the sign based in the date of birth and time, you really get balance when you learn to navigate to all the other signs and get balance with all the abilities, because each one of us need all the abilities. The one
Absolutely.
that you are born is just a guideline to get to the other ones. And first
It's your
understand yourself
superpower.
and then get to the other ones.
Yes, it's your superpower. The other ones balance and support as you learn to bring them in, and they help you to be more effective, to communicate better with other people, to modify how you respond so that you can be more conscious in your interactions with other people.
Your internal systems start to become supportive. Your ego becomes something that wants to support you, not protect you. And so the fight or flight reaction becomes much, much less, because you don't need a fight. You don't need to flee. You can just be in the environment and use your superpower to support yourself.
Or one of the others.
Or one of the others.
Yes. I liken it to, it's a possibility for us to truly become a cosmic being. We at least have a definition of what a cosmic being is. At least the first steps, right? Is someone who can activate all natural numbers in their body and consciously use the full ability of their perceptive realities.
And
So yes, there's a lot here that you can do, and there's a lot here that we have to support you, and we are looking for people who want to come and participate with us.
Yes, and just a reminder, if you actually, I'm trying to target the people with kids with special abilities, but if you are a parent, you are really interested in joining this workshop, you are welcome to.
Absolutely. All kids have special abilities.
Yes.
Actually, they do.
And it will help you support them, because even children that have trouble communicating are communicating. They may not be verbal, but their bodies are communicating, their energy is communicating, and being able to understand much more easily that communication and not disbelieving. We have magic. All of us have magic, especially these children, and they are giving us gifts of their magic all the time. And if we don't believe they're giving us magic, we can't hear them.
I think one of the biggest problem in really get the children out of their natural abilities is the school system. I'm really sorry, whoever is watching that doesn't agree with me, but to try to put everybody in the same box in a school system and shame whoever dare to try to do differently. That's a very, very hard thing. To
yes, and we've had a hard time getting into the school system because it's very controlled.
Yeah, but things are changing. Things are really changing.
I hope so.
So how would you work with a parent that has their kids on the school system, but those kids are really, really having a hard time?
Well, it starts with first the parents understanding themselves, right? The parent has got to get identified and understand themselves. That's step one. The next is to get the kid identified so you know what you're dealing with. And then we can look at the dynamic between the parent and the kid. And then we can look at the dynamic between the kid and his teachers and his peers and the places that they're having trouble. Because there are going to be very, your natural number is very predictive of how you're responding. So if we see kinds of responses, then we can look and say, okay, what's going on here? Is this child not adequately stimulated? Is there somebody bullying this child? Are they being abused in some way? These things show up in different ways based off your natural number, but it's very specific to the situation.
The child's superpower is one way that we hope children listen to what we're saying about them. Because when we can talk to a child and say, this is your superpower, this is built into you, you are good at this, you do it naturally. Everything else might be, as you say, other ways of looking at things, putting them in the same box is wrong, because there's at least 9 boxes. And inside your box, you are the hero.
Right. You're the hero.
And that is a different approach. And even most parents that have these superpowered children, talking to them as the hero, exactly.
You're talking about this. I'm sorry. You're talking about the school of the future.
Yes.
Let's bring this book to the schools.
Yep.
That would be the ideal school of the future that I hope this near future, because I don't think we as society can handle that much more. And the proof of that is very simple. How many teenagers in depression? How many adults are in depression?
Yep.
We didn't mean to come here and struggle and suffer and don't want to be here. We came here to have a happy dream. To learn with our experiences, but have fun. Even when sometimes you have to work hard or get into challenges, but in a good way. Embracing the fullest that you are and just be happy with. And work together and interact and have a community. I think community is the society trying to break free from the communities. They want to isolate each one of us because we are weak when isolate.
It is very clear that community is the best way to raise children, because the child then gets an experience of all the different natural numbers. And in the past, when the communities were smaller and there was more interaction, everybody grew up knowing each other much better. If there's no community, people can't learn.
Right, because when natural number doesn't repeat in families and we reduce our number of people in a family to 4 or 5, then the grandparents repeat in the children first before new natural numbers are brought into the system. So you'll get silos, and people grow up having no experience and in their immediate family of 3 or 4 of the natural numbers. So they are very confused when they go out into the world and deal with people of those natural numbers, because they just don't understand what's going on there. And so that further complicates our understanding of the system, because it's a whole system. The natural numbers each have a function, and they each work together, and they support each other in a very particular way, and we have lost any awareness of this. So we need to bring this understanding back into parenting and to school systems and the communities.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, I think you guys should talk with the education secretary. How you call that? The
Secretary of Education?
Yeah, the Secretary of Education.
If you know somebody that can introduce us, we'll talk to anybody. If you know somebody, introduce us, we will talk to them. Absolutely.
Well, if you guys that are watching, if you know who they are, try to make the
If you have to grow up with a Secretary of Education.
Stranger things happen.
Yep, exactly.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and remember that we manifest with our thoughts. And more people thinking and manifesting together, remember the collective bucket. Let's change the educational system and the way we parent our kids.
Yeah, it was for me such a beautiful experience to see the impact that this understanding had in the family that I was with, and what a difference, what a difference. And in all aspects of our relationships, when we understand, it's life is easier and happier and more joyful. Absolutely.
We are getting to the end of the hour. I can't believe that was so fast. And I just think I was looking at your website, and you have private session, couple session, family session. And I'm thinking, how on earth they are having time to have private sessions right now? So
Well,
if
we
you
do
are
them when somebody
interested,
asks.
sorry, go ahead.
We do them when somebody books one online, and our schedule's available there, and you can just book a session with us. And until such time as, the rest of the time we just work on everything we have to work on. So it is,
We have time.
We have time. Yeah. Right
Oh,
now we're just trying to touch people still.
okay, so if you are interested in learning more about yourself or about your family, it's very impactful. Just try and see. Susan, I think we took the right decision on moving through family. I think that was more important at this time. And now you guys will have to come back to talk about healthy abundance. It's still a
Okay.
little bit of relationship and community and the life's purpose and passion.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Happy to talk about all the ways that this is impacts all of that.
So let me just take a quick look to see if I have any questions here on the chat. Let's see, Eleonora, I'm so proud of all the work you have been done. Love you. Thank you. She doesn't really have a direct question for you, but she's just being grateful that I brought you guys here with
Beautiful.
this
Yep.
amazing information that's really unique. I didn't heard about the natural number anywhere else. And if you are curious to learn more about Susan and Martin, please watch the first podcast that was also amazing. And stay tuned for the next one that will be about abundance and finance. Also, relationships, life's purpose. That's a big one. Everybody wants to say, okay, must have another way. Is that all for me? Is really all that I came here to do? Just to survive? What is my life's purpose? What I'm here for? Well, they don't have the answer for you, but they will help you to find yourself the answer. That's even more powerful.
Yes, it
Susan,
is.
Martin, thank you so much. And do you have departure message to everyone?
Right.
Yeah, but I think we've said it all 7 times. So thank you, Eleonora. We truly appreciate.
And we'll see you next time.
And we'll see you, in a month or so.
So thank you so much, everyone. And it was really a pleasure to have each one of you here. And see you next time.